Welcome to the second episode of Questions and Answers, the show where the answers are made up and the questions don't matter. If you have fun here, please rate the video, hit the subscribe button to then hit the bell, and maybe comment for the algorithm. I also have a Patreon, and I stream occasionally on Twitch. I also have a community Discord. If you want to submit a question for a future episode, comment on this video and say you want your question answered in a future episode. If I like your question or have time to fit it in, you'll feature next time. Let's get right into it with the first question. Did I play card games on motorcycles with a Brooklyn Furry and Barney the Dinosaur? No. What is a good way to keep track of timers for rotations in higher end content? As a Dragoon, I've had to worry about 30-second timers my entire time playing the game, so it was a lot easier to keep track of timers when I have a whole button in the middle of my hotbar that tracks the time for me. As far as possible tips, there's the obvious one of have a dedicated hotbar for it. Grab an unused hotbar, make it huge, put it in a good place, and add in the cooldowns you want to track. Another way is to keep a mental track of mechanics versus cooldown usage timers. This one is especially useful in ultimates, since cooldowns you might want to delay. Sure, you are using 1 minute off sync from your 2 minutes, but you don't need to sync them up until after the next mechanic. When you know the next 2-minute window is after a specific mechanic, you know you can just go through your rotation without worrying about that button or such. If you're forgetting specific buttons within burst windows, that might be a hotbar issue too. Using half of your burst actions and just forgetting the others exist? You might want to put them together. Like for Dragoon, I've always kept my buffing cooldowns right here in the top left. Life Surge has always been a timer I need to track separately anyway, so it's closer to jump than not, while being on a button I am comfy with. Though also, keep in mind that the job has changed over 10 years, but my hotbars have not. We used to have 4 cooldowns to use on Dragoon. They were F1 through F4, plus a potion. Heavy Thrust used to be my 1 key. That skill got removed as Curth and Torment got added, so since my AoE is already there, fill in the slot. Rise of the Dragon was my Spine Shatter key. Gasgogel was always on this button, but when it was originally given to us, it was not anything like how it works now. There's a lot of possible ways to get comfy and keep track of your buttons. It's always about what works for you, personally. A highly upvoted question shows a lot of people want to know the answer. What is an Nidhogg? I have no idea why people want to know this. This has nothing to do with me, and it's pretty obvious playing Final Fantasy what Nidhogg is. This is Nidhogg. Pretty simple. Next we have a pretty involved question. Do I think 14 would benefit from a side grade gearing system? No. Before I get into the gearing system part of the question, I feel like a side grade system would be for a skill tree so that it's easier to swap around. They did say in the Dawntrail media tour that they might be moving away from simply increasing the level cap to do something different. A skill tree could be that, if they do it right. Though I'm not too sure that would go over well either. For gear, there's a ton of problems with adding that in, even if the game was originally built around it. The obvious one is that players will always optimize the fun out of a game. Let's mostly ignore that this alone destroys the idea entirely. I'll keep mentioning as a sub-reason of why the rest of the things I go over are problems, but it's not gonna be the end-all be-all reason. Next we have the idea of how you obtain said side grades. Do you just make it RNG drops? Do you have to do a grind for it? Do you just choose to put the side grades onto gear via materia, or a new item you can otherwise easily obtain? All of these just make side grade gearing filled with problems. If they went the RNG path, I would cite Diadem, not the one we have, the second iteration with emergency missions I constantly use as proof of how Heavensward had less content than current FF, and was worse than any of the current content we get. Even if we ignore every other horrible aspect of it, the gear reward was an RNG item that could be worthless. How many runs would you need to get a decent item? Since everything boils down to a best in slot, everything would have an optimal gear set. How many runs do you need to get that specific gear piece? They could reduce the RNG in a dozen different ways so that farming your gear would be easier. You always get a piece, it always has a bonus side grade effect, and so on. But how reduced on the RNG do you get before you might as well make it entirely on the player to intentionally add the effect. So then what if it's materia? Materia is extremely common these days, not like the old days where we had to do painful spirit bonding or allied societies. And we had tons of filler materia like elemental materia. Consider that tenacity materia used to only upgrade our parry rate. It had even less benefit than tenacity does. You could just get the items easily with no problem. No real grind, no real friction in the system. Why is it gear and not a skill tree? Why make it gear if it's that easy? So if you're gonna make it gear, you have to have some form of friction to make sense. Obviously we can't make it a grind, because relics exist, and everyone seems to hate those. I logged in mere hours after the current relic step was released, the same exact day, and already people were fucking complaining how it was too much work, how the devs failed with them not balancing every duty to give a ton of light, and that Crystal Tower is a punishment to get it. It takes around 3 weeks at most to complete this step, and you have to do it only one time. Do your dailies every day, and you will be done. Even Alliance Raids gives way more than 500 points per run on average, and that's 20 days of runs at that 500 point value. Grind it out a little a day, and it takes far less days. Again, you only have to do this once. Extremely low friction filling roulette queues for high amounts of progress on a daily cooldown. Less than a month of actually having players play the fucking game, and people were upset over it. If this easy of a grind, this extremely simple non-step of a relic step, is getting certain players riled up, you can't have any sort of real grind to get the side grade materia. It has to be very easy to obtain in high quantities so it doesn't upset people. A huge new system like that is sure to rile so many people up if something this tiny gets people going. So then, how do we get the materia? Specific content that hopefully is fun? We're back to it being a drop, but it's going to be tokens, and you get to choose the effects. It's not free, but it's not an RNG mess. We're still running into the best in slot issue though. Why didn't you build in this way? Copy the meld list off of the balance or etro. The content immediately dies when everyone has their materia. So then we combine it into the main content again. How do you weave it in without it being a grind? Do we just buy it with the same materia tokens? If it's that easy, again, why gear-based and all the issues that comes with? Can't be too rare a unique drop, unless it's now a grind. 1 or 2 per dungeon run? Since everyone is doing content, the board will propagate quick enough. But again, that might be more of a grind than the current relic step, and that's already too much. On top of that, are casuals going to participate in the system at all? Do they have any reason to play around with the system? Or is this just going to be ultimate level players getting a stack of each special materia to change the gear up per different ultimate? Is the bar low enough for everyone to want to adopt it? Is the system significant enough for people to adopt it? Even with the perfect level of obtaining, even if we get people to adopt it, we're still stuck with the problem of balance. In the game as current, most jobs seem to not do anything with skill or spell speed. You will grab a small amount at most, and any variance is 0.01 seconds of difference for comfort, ping, or slight fight design reasons. How many ideas for side grades would actually be viable while remaining balanced? A few points DPS difference at most, while completely changing up the way the job plays. Sounds impossible in the hands of players with too much customization. So ultimately, I think any sort of gear side grading is fraught with dangers that people aren't considering. The kind of side grades people tend to say they are looking for are very much better suited to a skill tree. The devs have way more control over balancing those. A tree that cuts your GCD to 1.5 seconds, but lowers potencies too? Any overpowered or underpowered results could be ironed out way easier than this specific balance of 10 different materia pieces makes you OP, but nerfing any one specific materia will make it entirely worthless in all contexts. I really do feel like the average person doesn't really consider the depth of their ask. They think that adding side grades will be super easy to do and not absolutely destroy the game in any way. Even ignoring the other pitfalls, it's a very involved thing to add. If I could make any change to Dragoon, what would it be? I miss my Nostron's tales. I miss her and her a lot. I'll be back. What game am I playing the most right now, and what is my favorite game series? MapleStory. I just finished with a Hyperburn of Lyn, but the freebie Vac Pet from Inkwell's Thank You ran out. I could see what a huge difference it makes, and it kinda burned me out on the game. I came back because I was craving a mindless grind, and Maple really fits the bill when you have a Vac Pet. Without it, I'll cut it here because I could rant about MapleStory for a long time. My favorite game series, though? Despite how disappointing Pikmin 4 is, Pikmin is my absolute favorite series. Any of the games, this is the only series where once I beat it, I get emotional. I can play it over and over, and I have many times. Don't cry that it's over, be glad that it happened. Yet I can't help myself. Emotions well up with just how much I love these absolutely stupid little creatures. Also, Pikmin 2 is the best one in the series. People complain about the caves being difficult or such, but I just say Dandori issue. Simply meet the game on its terms, and it's a very wonderful time. Plus, Louis is a wonderful asshole. Wait, what's that sound? Shit. What do I like to do for fun outside of the game? I don't know. I never thought about it before. Why do I have a hotbar full of limit breaks? I don't. I have one limit break button. Count them. One. Haha, one. I'm also being serious here. Consider tank and healer limit breaks. This is my version of the big red button you do not push. You do not push this button under any circumstance. Then things go to hell and you smash that red button. I might be a Dragoon main, but I do end up playing other jobs in easier content. You can still wipe there, as we've all experienced before. It makes for a very easy to hit LB button, while being out of the way in all other moments of a duty. How many Grand Company seals did I spend on Keeper's Hymns back in the day? I'm including this one simply for a history lesson for people because nobody spent that much. Back in the early days of the game, we had stat points to allocate on level. Your only real use for these was to invest them into your main stat. There was almost no reason to ever invest them elsewhere. Keeper's Hymns were reset items, so if you as a new player put points for your bard into int, you could fix that. So most people probably never needed any, except for Summoner and Scholar. Consider that one uses int and one uses mind. Consider that both count as Arcanist and share level ups to this day. Consider that you can play all jobs on one character. Finally, consider that back then, you had at most a few hundred stat points. So 30 points to allocate was a huge chunk. If you wanted to swap back and forth on these jobs and play both regularly, you needed a small stack of Keeper's Hymns to swap your points back and forth. It was a very specific use case, but it did affect a small subset of people. As a Scholar hater and Summoner disliker back in the day, I barely needed them. But the most ardent fans of both jobs could need plenty. Them and them alone are the players that spent anything on Keeper's Hymns. It was 150 seals per, I believe, so at least even in the old days it was barely anything. Is there any old dungeon, trial, or raid that I would change? Yes, like 90% of the content in the game. First, bring back old 1000 Maws of Totorak. Second, bring back the woogly ghosty bridges in Scala. I miss those. Thirdly, rescale all content to actually account for power creep. Did you know that Crystal Tower used to have actual mechanics? Do you know even one mechanic of what Glacia Labulas even does? What the point of those towers in Scylla's boss room are? The reason why it's correct to tank Bone Dragon mid and not north? I would rather preserve old design in most cases. Sure, sometimes it was utter trash. In a lot of cases, we lost out on a lot of cool things. On top of people just not trying, not learning to play better, And the constant leaving! Stop leaving Crystal Tower before you even finish loading in! You're a coward! Coward! Stop whining about the relic! What are my hopes for jobs that didn't get many changes recently? Well, I don't inherently think they need to change jobs that much. Small additions here or there until they reach a complete toolkit. Rework when it gets stale or such. However, when they create new design space for jobs like new ones or summoner, they should kinda do more. I don't know if I ever put anything in video before, but I had something big imagined for summoner. Consider that we loop back and forth between Bahamut and Phoenix. Why couldn't we do that with our other summons? Every alternate go-through would give us the Ramuh, Leviathan, and Shiva Eggy. Apparently the lore says we can't, but also the existence of Lunar Bahamut also seems counter to the lore. You could have these Eggies interact with each other. Leviathan would apply Dropsy. Shiva and Ramuh would do something special and remove Dropsy. Ramuh's potency would double under Dropsy. Shiva would cause the enemies to freeze temporarily, or at least be stronger AoE damage specifically. You know how strong Holy is? Giving Summoner their own unique crowd control would be huge, at least for leveling dungeons where things actually hurt. Changing Summoner away from a dot job will always be controversial, but they could turn it into something super unique and play with the mechanics it has. Instead we just got Bahamut 2! If I was given the ability to rework any job in the game, what would I do? I would choose Samurai. I would do something very simple, and everyone would love me. Patch 8.0 is released. People scroll down to the Samurai section. They see in bold text the following change. Re-added the skill, Kaiten. There it is. The applause, roaring with excitement. Wesk is hailed as the one person who saved Final Fantasy XIV. Move over, Yoshi P. Wesk is our new hero. The adulations and fame pour in. Everyone loves me. Even that one weird hater who keeps leaving unhinged comments on every 1 to 100 video. I am the best thing to ever happen to the game. I am a true warrior of light. And then, in patch 8.01, I delete Kaiten. Thank you for watching this episode of Questions and Answers. Once again, please rate on the video, comment on the video for the algorithm, or any questions you have. If I didn't pick your question, feel free to try again. There's a lot of questions and only so much time in a video, especially when I rant about side grading gear that much. Subscribe to me here, or Twitch, or Patreon, and join the Discord. All of these are down in the description, along with my social medias. I'm here, I'm there, I'm not everywhere. Thank you, and may the power of An and Nidhogg lay waste to your enemies.